Hey everyone, welcome back to your favorite sales podcast. I'm your host, Ross Rich, and we have a very special guest today. We have Kevin McIntyre, who we're inviting to the pod, who is now the CRO of Dealfront, dialing in from what I believe is Italy right now. So yeah, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ross. It's a pleasure to be here. Now, if we were doing this about 2 months ago, I would have been in Italy. Family and I
Okay.
just
Sorry, I'm
relocated.
just guessing from the espresso, man.
No, well, it's essential. It's essential. My family and I relocated back to Boston after
Amazing.
about nearly a 3 year experience in Italy, and as you can see here, had to take some of the culture with me. And given that I'm supporting mostly U.S. or European hours from the U.S., the constant drip of espresso is essential.
Totally. So, and I don't know if that's like against the religion having like an espresso type machine versus the real deal, but I digress. Yeah, before we get into it and talk about Kevin's top three strategies for nailing execution excellence, would love to hear maybe a bit about your path because we were just talking about a bit of a different one to CRO. I think you usually see the SDR to top performing AE to manager, director, etc. And you've had a bit of a different path. So I'd love to hear a bit about your journey and how you found yourself into this amazing role.
Yeah, definitely, and thanks again. And it's great to have the opportunity to be a part of the podcast. So yeah, as you mentioned, my path to chief revenue officer at Dealfront is a bit different. I have not followed as you said, the traditional path through kind of sales, individual contributor excellence through learning leadership roles, gaining additional experience, and earning the right to take on a position like this. Um, it's been much more of an operational path. And my role in tech and software and B2B SaaS, like really started in, I think at the time, like my first title out of school, I think was like pricing and contract analyst or something like that. And worked for at the time what was an enterprise search company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a
Mhm.
startup out of Carnegie Mellon University, and just helped with some pricing work, some lightweight business analysis, and like literally like contract filing. And over time,
Fun
that kind of
stuff.
turned, yeah. I mean, hey, it's what every kind of 22-year-old can hope for coming out with their first degree. But it turned and morphed into a sales operations role at this organization. And I think at the time we were just under probably 20 million in revenue,
Mhm.
um, maybe even lower, but I digress. So it started out in a sales operations role, and the company performed very well and earned the right to be acquired by IBM. And then I ended up taking on a number of different kind of sales operations and sales strategy roles. And I hate to use that word like sales strategy or go to market
What does that
strategy. The
really
word is
mean? Yeah.
the word is thrown around like way too liberally and doesn't really mean anything. But at the end of the day, it was helping orchestrate like, go to market motions and ensuring that the sales teams had what they need in order to be successful with clients.
Mm.
I was in a space that was kind of startup ish within IBM, if you can even consider it that, and looking at like cloud based data services and areas that were new to the organization. If you go back like 10 plus years ago, um, and kind of working in this area to empower like their sales teams with like newer technology and go to market motions and customer stories and use cases and
Mhm.
supporting pricing and that kind of stuff. And over time, after experience at IBM, which I still maintain to this date, was way more valuable than my MBA. The experience of getting able to travel the world and meet with all different types of businesses and executives from banking and retail and looking at other technology companies and government institutions across the world was truly eye opening. And seeing what an organization like that, how it operates, I think I wouldn't be where I am today without that experience for sure.
Mhm.
And then I just, as time progressed, want to take on some new opportunities, and through some kind of other professional relationships that I had developed, found myself at Zoom Info in Boston. Was at Zoom Info for about 2 years, and another opportunity presented itself to work with some people from the past And
Hmm.
my time at ZoomInfo was focused primarily again on like revenue enablement, sales operations, and again this kind of go-to-market strategy orchestration type role. Facilitated some revenue enablement, and again other kind of operational roles at a company called Enterprise DB. I'm also headquartered in the Boston area, focused on enabling enterprises to get the most out of Postgres. So if you're familiar with Postgres as a
Yep.
database, um, and then I won't get into the story of how I came to Dealfront, but essentially um, that operational experience and working with global companies and having an understanding of what's required to empower sales teams and customer teams to realize success and deliver a positive customer experience, um, earn this opportunity for me. And look, I'm not arrogant or kind of conceited enough to think that like I know everything and I figured it all out. But I hope the audience can like learn a bit of something from a first time CRO. And like I truly believe that the future of the CRO is not necessarily just like the evolution of a sales career. And I maintain that an SVP of sales and a CRO are very different roles. And my sales leadership currently at Dealfront, I would say with complete honesty that they're probably better sales professionals than I am, right? And they're living and breathing that every single day. And I feel what my job is and to ensure that they have the right pieces and guidance and the right structure and the right empowerment in order to deliver. And then
Hmm.
looking across the comprehensive customer journey from just demand generation, engagement with our brand through pipeline progression, earning the right to conduct business, and then delivering that positive customer experience through onboarding and progressing them through a customer journey and being able to expand and renew. Like that's the remit. And so
Hmm.
much to pull that off is it's more operational in nature personally. So
Yeah,
while my path maybe not as common, my instinct is that it will become more common as time progresses.
for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess before we get to kind of the core execution excellence pieces, I'm curious to get your take on maybe a tough question is thinking about the time spent with customers going through that sales journey and path versus being more of an internal, serving the internal teams. How you
Sure.
think that that informs in that trade-off as being a CRO representing, all revenue in the customer, where maybe I haven't spent a career and decades customer facing and that's
Yep.
close to the metal in the field. So I'm curious to get your take on that and the trade-offs
It's
and how you have to compensate maybe in other areas with other executives on your team.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think throughout my career, it has peaks and troughs from when I've been like really engaged and engaging with customers as
Yeah.
like a majority of what I'm doing versus kind of putting pieces in place and thinking and analyzing and orchestrating programs to support other people being successful. Um, and I'll admit right now, I'm not nearly as customer facing as I would like to be. Part of that is also because we're very much kind of 80% of our business is European focused and we deal in local language. It's like my ability to deal with like German and Swedish and Finnish
Gotta
customers
get
is a
some
bit
Duolingo
limited.
going on, some Rosetta
Yeah,
Stone.
well, and my very limited Italian doesn't come into as much benefit because we don't have much presence for the Italian market. But what I will say is when you're not engaging with customers on a day-to-day basis, you have to ensure you're not losing sight of what the customer experience is with your product or service. And while I don't find myself currently and at other times in the past when it's been more operational, engaging with clients day in and day out, making sure that I'm talking with the people who are, and whether you
Mm,
have an opportunity to review calls, and right now the ones that I can understand in English, but constantly interviewing and working with reps, working with sales leaders to understand their experience. So at least if I'm not experiencing it firsthand, I can get it kind of by extension and understand what they're going through to ensure that we're doing the right things from a marketing, product, and so on perspective to support what they need.
totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, interesting to hear just different paths. And I agree. I think it's going to become more and more common. I think especially as this the focus on efficiency and productivity and more of a balance around the CRO role isn't just top line; it is more holistic. Um, and CEOs and COs looking for partners on the revenue side to really understand the business and to do less translation on their plate to really understand that side of the business. So yeah.
Absolutely, and admittedly, this is the first time in my career where I've really had to be focused on that. I mean, obviously aware of like CAC to LTV ratios and CAC payback metrics and the capacity per teams, aware of those things, but never really was central or critical to the way I was working. And now it very much is, and
Yeah.
particularly given the state of B2B SaaS and kind of the mind shift that it's gone from growth at all costs to sustainable, profitable growth. It's really important, and having a true understanding of those metrics is critical to the work that I'm doing now.
Totally, totally. Well, shifting gears a bit, we're going to talk about three kind of core topics for the next 15 minutes or so. The first that you had down was fostering a culture of communication and transparency. A couple of great examples there that you provided. Second is building a solid management system. So curious to hear, based on your operational background, what that looks like. And then wrapping it up with defining and strengthening your go-to-market motion. And sounds like that'll be across the customer journey, not just for sales. So maybe to kick things off at the highest level, at cultural level, what is most important when you think about execution excellence on your revenue team when it comes to making sure you're communicating effectively across your team?
Absolutely. Just 30 seconds of background to the
Yeah.
situation that I found myself in when I joined Dealfront as CRO, because it'll provide some context to how we navigate these three strategies. So I won't get in. This isn't a pitch on Dealfront or the company I represent, but essentially it was formed through an investment from an outside a growth equity company who merged two organizations, one from Finland, one from Germany, brought these two together. One was very office centric, single culture. Other was remote first, like pan European, global organization. And so I joined shortly after the merger, not having any connection with either of the two legacy heritage teams, and find myself with an organization trying to build towards a single platform strategy and bringing technologies together and bringing people together from different company backgrounds and different cultures.
Mhm.
So when you talk about kind of coming into a culture of communication and transparency, I knew coming in from the outside that first and foremost, I had to earn their trust. To be a respected leader who can make a difference in supporting the work that they do day in and day out.
Mhm.
Not just because I'm from the outside and haven't gone through what they have been, but also because I'm American and I'm not
Mhm.
I'm joining a European team and not having lived and breathed the European lifestyle my entire life. And then
Mhm.
secondly, I'm a first time CRO, right? So needing to be able to prove myself in this role. So it became very important to me while navigating all of this change and also trying to kind of earn the respect and credibility from the team that I would operate in the open and ensuring that what we're navigating across the different dimensions of our revenue organization, from RevOps, enablement, sales dev, new biz, customer success, and so on, that we're ensuring that the left foot is marching with the right and making sure that you have the right forums of communication to be open and transparent, and quickly establishing ways of being connected with the teams and also allowing people to provide feedback.
Mhm.
So like right away ensuring like basic things that we have the right Slack channels in place on the appropriate topics, right? Being able to have monthly revenue all hands calls, like review the results in the open, talk about some successes, make sure people know what we're focused on and what's important in the weeks, months, and quarters ahead. I started setting up like lunch roundtables where I could just get to meet people and they could provide feedback to me and what they're experiencing and what's working and what's not working. Um, Making sure that like on a weekly basis, I'm able to communicate like what the goals are for the week and talk about success and more importantly, sometimes the mistakes and failures that we're experiencing, so we can learn and grow from that. I strongly feel that at the end of the day, the work that people do, whether they're putting in 6, 8, 10, 12 plus hours a day, they need to feel the effort that they're putting in is connected to the progress in the business. And I think company cultures and teams struggle when they can't make that connection and they don't see what I'm spending my time on all day. Is this making a difference in what's important to the organization? And is what we're focused on, am I making a contribution to that? And I think when that gets diminished or people don't see it, teams start to suffer.
Totally. Yeah. It's almost the stuff that seems like stupid simple, but if you aren't thoughtful about it, if you don't create those spaces to, like you said, have those lunchtime conversations or the retros every month or quarter, I think leadership is top of mind for them a lot because they're setting the cadence, they're setting those OKRs, but really hard to keep top of mind maybe as an IC if you don't have those meetings. So that's a really good point. Is there one thing to wrap up this topic around building a culture of communication and transparency? Is there kind of one, obviously there's not a silver bullet, it's about repetition, about doing in different avenues and channels, but is there one thing that you found when you tested something out or, a mentor did, or you started to do yourself that really made a difference in having folks on the team really understand the impact that they're bringing to the organization?
I'll cheat and give you two quick ones. I think the first one is particularly in times of stress or trouble and like going through a merger of this magnitude, it is a stressful environment because there's so much change. And like over communication is key and repetition is key and repetition in different forums. And whether it's written in a message to the team, whether it's reemphasized in a video or you bring it up again on like a team call, like you need to embrace repetition. And secondly, I just think openness earns trust, and being able to have accountability and openness and being humble when things aren't going well, or perhaps we didn't make the right decision. What have we learned from it and how do we move on? And being able to celebrate the good things, but also be like raw and real about the challenges.
Yeah, totally. I think people, especially nowadays, don't want the like raw, everything's good, and really respect hey, this is what we're doing right, this is what we're doing wrong, and this is what we're doing to fix that. Is definitely builds a lot more trust that way. Shifting gears away from this culture and communication of transparency to building a solid management system. What do you mean by this? Is this like your operational way of running the company and the org? Like, what are some of those examples of things that you found really important to that organizational management system?
Yeah. And so from a management system, if that term doesn't resonate with everybody, just to make it even simpler, my leadership team, we have a document that the title of it is The Way We Work.
Yes.
Right. And this covers everything from how we're setting goals, going back to the communication point, like how are we communicating? Where are we communicating? What is our cadence of communication in certain types of meetings within our specific teams, within a broader group, within the organization, how we make decisions, right? How we solicit feedback, where and how we present certain changes, right? And when we implement these changes, are we in a constant state of iterating, or are there certain predetermined kind of milestones or times when new introductions might be presented to the team? Also looking at how we manage different projects and initiatives. And what I've quickly learned in the CRO remit is just the sheer number of projects that are being run at any given time. And whether it's like a capital P project with some kind of code name, or it's just some kind of initiative you're driving for like a sales play or like a retention play, there's all of these different things going on at any given time, right? And being able to be on top of those and ensure that they're progressing in the right way and people know how to like set an agenda, set goals, determine milestones, manage tasks, right? And the technology that underpins that. So I think it's really critical for any leader, particularly revenue leaders, to understand like how you want your org to function. And whether it's a 10 or 20 person org or the one that I have like myself that's upwards of 120, being very intentional and again open about how you want the team to function is a key thing.
Yeah, I love that. The way that we work, I think again, something that maybe leaders take for granted if they've just worked in a certain way or style for a long time. But you can't ingest new people or join a new organization if you don't make the expectations clear from day one. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes there
Yeah.
isn't friction. It's like, oh yeah, we're just using different words or language and we're talking past each other. So I think that's a great document. I've also seen that like the operating system of a team be used as another way of kind of putting that management system, which I love, just especially if you're in tech. It's like this is our
Yeah,
OS.
I think
This is just how we work. Yeah.
yeah, it's again it does come from the operational background, and like I struggle when like things just happen and you weren't really in control of it, right? And if like even if they're positive things, if you're driving success and you're seeing good growth, if you don't have command of how you got there, what did we do in order to get there, and it's yeah, it's like having that level of kind of control, but not in the point where it's like me wrapping my arms around it, but control in the sense that we have the right ecosystem and environment that supports the success of the teams and the individuals, like making progress for the business.
Yeah. And maybe before we move off this, the last topic around defining and strengthening your go-to-market motion is how do you balance spending time on the how as well as the doing? Because I find I struggle with this personally. Is like sometimes I'll find everyone says work on the business, not in the business. Ross is a CEO and founder and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, it's so hard because then sometimes you get so obsessed around the meetings and the planning and stuff like that, and that becomes the job versus some of the doing. So I'm curious to get your perspective of how you balance the importance of what's the reality on the field with our customers, with the leads, with the deals, with the product, as well as running
Mm-hmm.
the business from an operational perspective.
If you ever have a guest who's leading a revenue organization of 100 plus people that has a perfect answer for that, I'd love to hear their answer, because I admit it's something I struggle with, and it's constant. It's exactly what you said. It's trying to balance the the process, how we approach this, the management of it, kind of the documentation of how like we want to approach a certain topic or initiative, whether it's a new tool implementation, a new sales process, a new like expansion play that we're going to run across the customer base, versus actually just get out there and do it, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's just having
it,
meetings
it
and making the thing happen. Yeah,
and constantly like challenging myself, like am I using my time, but more importantly like my team's time in the right way, to drive towards those business results. So it is something I do struggle with. I do think though it is important for me to be focused on the how, to empower the team to do the doing, because I think if I'm doing like personally where I'm sitting doing like a lot of like the execution of what the business needs to do, something's probably wrong, especially for the size of the organization I have.
yeah, at
Now,
120
if you're a
people. Yeah,
CRO for like a 10 or 15 person team, yes, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and get into a lot of that. But at a certain point, like you're going to get to a point where you need to trust your team and the people leading the smaller groups and the individuals in front of the customers, and you want to be empowering them to have the positive prospect and customer interactions.
totally. Yeah, it definitely is contextual, but I'm glad it's not just me, Kevin, that is struggling with that, and we'll definitely maybe
If
sounds like a
anybody's figured
good
it out,
topic
I'm sure
for.
they're lying. I'm sure they're lying.
I completely agree with you. Well, shifting gears to the last piece that we're going to talk about that I think puts together a lot of the stuff that we've touched on, which is, I mean, I'm glad that you started with defining because I think a lot of people talk about getting better at their go-to-market motion where people don't even have it defined in the first place, and kind of goes back to your point of like, how do you know what's working if you don't even have a clear understanding across the organization of what is the thing that we're doing? So yeah, I would love to hear how you think about breaking down a go-to-market motion and looking at levers to improve and optimize.
Absolutely. Uh, so again, this is increasingly complicated for the situation I found myself in, again, with the result of the merger of the two organizations, because you had one that was like very much PLG driven, like self-service through trial and like the PLG sales assist model. and then one that's much more traditional sales-led growth with probably what a lot of the listeners are exposed to through like a demo request, and then being able to kind of follow that up and do your traditional discovery call, and then either get to like further demos or trials, and then like going down that kind of path.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of business are starting to embrace hybrid. And so when you look at how you want to prove value to your customers and earn the right to earn their business, you need to be able to break it down into how, like, what that looks like, and what is the experience for the prospect, what's the experience from the sales professional, and what does that comprehensive journey look like. I've been a very big fan of the Winning by Design group. I'm not sure how familiar everyone in
Yeah, we
in
had
the
Jacko
audience
on
is.
here.
Yeah, awesome.
I think a month ago. So yeah,
Oh,
we're
really?
the
Amazing.
listeners are
Okay.
familiar with
I
him now, at
I
least.
can't
Yeah.
compare it to him. If you're listening now, just stop and go listen to that episode. But I mean, the concept of the revenue bow tie, I just
Yeah.
think is brilliant, and being able to understand like how you're driving demand and engagement like with your brand, and being able to be in the process of proving value, get that mutual commitment with the prospect, and then be focused on the onboarding, driving to success, and the state of expansion, renewal, and growing, and this just concept of recurring value drives recurring revenue. Figure out for your business what fits into those different stages, right? And what are those key interactions between you and a prospect, or you and a customer, after you've closed an opportunity. Like, what is driving their progression? Because like in this subscription economy, if you're not delivering value, you're out, right? You're just out. And every interaction that's being driven either through a human or through the product needs to be intentional. And if you're just managing your business and just kind of looking at anything that comes in, and not being careful and structured around how you approach it, and having a set of expectations for your customer facing professionals on how they're driving that, then you have a bit of kind of a Wild West scenario. And again, you're back to that point where like things are just happening despite how you're trying to manage and intentionally grow the business. So I think like if you zoom out for your business, looking across different teams contributing to a customer journey, sales development, new business sales, customer success, perhaps you have expansion dedicated teams, partnerships, understanding their role for either different customer segments or different go-to-market motions you have, which might be different for SMB, might be different for mid-market, might be different for a trial, might be different for XYZ. And I just think having true command of what that looks like. So when something is working well, why? Hey, our win rates went up this month. Well, like let's look at the different stages and steps for what contributed to that. Did we do something differently that we should expand upon, right? Or if we are struggling and all of a sudden a certain region, a certain customer cohort is not performing in a certain way, like you have command of what that experience is, so you can then go in and dissect and learn more about your business.
Totally. I think you hit on a really important piece of, kind of zooming back out to the beginning of the conversation. The CRO is not just new business, but is existing customers, and that collaboration across product, across sales, CS, marketing, et cetera. And I think there's got to be this like human psychology thing, I don't know what to call it, where like the sexier, newer, new logo stuff is always top of mind. And it's really hard to spend as much time and effort and mind space as like you think about a company, let's say an amazing company, you're at, let's call it 60 mil ARR, growing 40% year over year, super efficiently though, bootstrapped. You're only adding a fraction of your existing base a year. So you're actually spending far more resources and more important for that existing business than the X million you're adding, even if it's at a high clip. But we don't think about it like that. We think about it, the growth, the top line stuff, not kind of the core. And then second to that is sellers only need to really sell decision makers. And yes, there's influencers on a deal, but really like there's key people, even with really, really large contracts. There's only a handful of folks that like really need to say yes. Whereas post sales, there's a user base, then there's those decision makers. And it's really hard to, I think, balance the like CSM motion of making those users successful, as well as keeping those executive and decision maker relationships. And usually folks will do one or the other. Usually either you'll,
Hmm.
be really great at the executive level and not do the product stuff, or you'll be really great at the product stuff and not get credit for it, as I call it. We talk about this all the time. I'm like, guys, we're not getting credit for the work we're doing because we're spending so much time making it happen on the field with our outcomes. We need to spend the 10% of the time recommunicating that back up to the people we spent time with during the sales process. And so your job kind of gets exponentially bigger post sales, but we spend less and less mind share on it. And it's just a really tough thing you always just need to be fighting, I think, as a leadership team.
I think the takeaway from that is everybody love your CSMs. Give love to your CSMs. They have a very hard job. And to your point, it's not as like air quote sexy or as attractive as like that new business win and everybody like rallying around it and look at this
It's like
great
great, they
deal.
renewed. Awesome.
Yeah, and now it's. I mean, that's when the real work begins. It's when a customer's made the commitment that they're going to invest in, and you have to back that up with the value that you deliver, and you have to support that. And hopefully, we all represent products that deliver upon that expectation. We would never betray that trust, right? There's
Nope.
never bugs in software. There's never issues there. And no, I mean, jokes aside, I think we collectively as like B2B SaaS and tech companies need to be spending infinitely more time on the existing revenue base you have, particularly if you're above 10 million. I know when you're kind of below that 10 million clip, like new business is going to be the lifeblood. But once you get to a certain point, the new business you win is not going to make up for churning in a leaky bucket, right? And if you don't have that back end figured out, you're going to start to plateau.
Yeah, completely. Well, this was a ton of fun, digging into a bit about your background and unique path to CRO, talking about, over communicating and building that trust and that value side of things, talking about that, operating system or how we work as a company, and then kind of rounding it out with, how you think about first defining and then improving your go-to-market systems. But yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of things for me to take back and consider for our team, and hopefully the listeners out there are the same. But Kevin, yeah, it's been an absolute blast today.
Thank you so much, Ross. Appreciate the time.